Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. If you would like to learn Japanese for work, travel, or simply personal interest, please subscribe to my channel and watch the videos in chronological order. All lessons are written in both English and Japanese, so if you read Japanese, you can follow along reading the hiragana alphabet. If you haven't learned the hiragana yet, you can learn them all in one afternoon by going through lessons 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you're perfectly fine following along using the English transliteration. So let's begin. Hajimemashou. In this lesson, we will learn how to conjugate the 5 most frequently used irregular verbs in the Japanese language into the 10 basic conjugations. Then, we practice making sentences. Irregular verbs do not follow a pattern when they conjugate into the basic 10, or if they follow a pattern, 1 or 2 conjugations in the basic 10 do not. And there are only 5 of them that are frequently used. These are the 5 irregular verbs that you need to know how to conjugate. You've already encountered all these verbs in our past lessons, mostly conjugated in their formal forms. But here, I introduce them to you in their dictionary forms. The first is suru, which means to do. You've encountered this as shimasu. Next is iku, which means to go. You met this verb before as ikimasu. Kuru, which means to come. You met this verb before as kimasu. Aru, which means to exist for inanimate things. You learn this as the verb arimasu. And da, which is the verb to be. This is the very first verb you learned as the verb desu. Suru means to do. This is a very useful verb because it combines with nouns to form compound verbs, such as tennis suru, to play tennis, or benkyou suru, to study. The dictionary form suru is also the plain non-past affirmative. It means does or will do. The negative is shinai, meaning doesn't do or won't do. The past tense is simply changing nai to nakatta, shinakatta, which means didn't do. The formal non-past affirmative is shimasu. Negative is shimasen. Past tense of shimasu is shimashita, and past tense of shimasen is shimasen deshita. Dropping the mas gives you the conjunctive form shi. The plain past affirmative is shita, which means did, and the te form is shite. Let's look at it one more time written in Japanese. Suru, shinai, shinakatta, shimasu, shimasen, shimashita, shimasen deshita, shi, shita, shite. Suru and shimasu both mean does or will do. Shinai and shimasen both mean doesn't do or won't do. Shita and shimashita both mean did. And shinakatta and shimasen deshita both mean didn't do. How do you say, I will do it, first in plain and then in formal style? Plain form is, watashi ga suru, watashi ga suru. Informal style, watashi ga shimasu, watashi ga shimasu. For our next sentence, let's use a compound verb of suru. Benkyou means studies. It is a noun. Combined with suru, benkyou suru means to study. How do you say, I studied yesterday? In plain form, kino watashi ga benkyou shita. Kino watashi ga benkyou shita. In formal style, kino watashi ga benkyou shimashita. Kino watashi ga benkyou shimashita. Kekkon is a noun that means marriage. When combined with suru, kekkon suru, it means to get married. How do you say in Japanese, she won't marry him? In plain form, 彼女は彼と結婚しない。彼女は彼と結婚しない。And in formal style, 彼女は彼と結婚しません。彼女は彼と結婚しません。Our next irregular verb is iku, which means to go. For the most part, iku behaves like a category 2 ku-ending verb. The dictionary form iku is the plain non-past affirmative. It means goes or will go. Negative is ikanai, meaning doesn't go or won't go. Past tense is ikanakatta, which is again formed by changing nai to nakatta. The formal non-past affirmative is ikimasu. Negative, ikimasen. Past tense of ikimasu is ikimashita. And past tense of ikimasen is ikimasen deshita. Drop the mas to form the conjunctive, which is iki. Now next, this is where iku becomes irregular. The plain past affirmative is itta, itta, and the te form is itte, itte. Here's how it looks like when written in Japanese. Iku, ikanai, ikanakatta, ikimasu, ikimasen, ikimashita, ikimasen deshita. Iki, itta, itte. Iku and ikimasu both mean goes or will go. Ikanai and ikimasen both mean doesn't go or won't go. Itta and ikimashita both mean went. Ikanakatta and ikimasen deshita both mean did not go. How do you say in Japanese, Mary didn't go to the party? In plain form, Miyari-san wa party ni ikanakatta. Miyari-san wa party ni ikanakatta. In formal style, Miyari-san wa party ni ikimasen deshita. Miyari-san wa party ni ikimasen deshita. How do you say, I went to Osaka last week? In plain form, 先週私が大阪に行った。先週私が大阪に行った。And in formal style, 先週私が大阪に行きました。先週私が大阪に行きました。How do you say in Japanese, he won't go to work today? Work is 仕事。In plain form, 今日彼は仕事に行かない。今日彼は仕事に行かない。And in formal style, 今日彼は仕事に行きません。今日彼は仕事に行きません。Our next irregular verb is kuru, which means to come. The dictionary form kuru means comes or will come. Negative is konai, meaning doesn't come or won't come. Past tense of that is konakatta. Nai changes to nakatta. Konakatta means did not come. The formal non-past affirmative is kimasu. Negative is kimasen. Past tense of kimasu is kimashita. Past tense of kimasen is kimasen deshita. Drop the mas to get the conjunctive form ki. The plain past affirmative is kita. Te form is kite. And this is how it looks like in Japanese. Kuru, konai, konakatta, kimasu, kimasen, kimashita, kimasen deshita, ki, kita, kite. Kuru and kimasu both mean comes or will come. Konai and kimasen both mean doesn't come or won't come. Kita and kimashita both mean came. Konakatta and kimasen deshita both mean did not come. Let's make some sentences. How do you say in Japanese, will you come to the house on Sunday? House is uchi and Sunday is nichiyoubi. In plain form, nichiyoubi ni uchi ni kuru. Nichiyoubi ni uchi ni kuru. It's in plain form, so questions are said in a rising intonation. For the formal style, Nichiyoubi ni uchi ni kimasu ka? Nichiyoubi ni uchi ni kimasu ka? How do you say in Japanese, she didn't come to school yesterday? In plain form, 昨日彼女は学校に来なかった。昨日彼女は学校に来なかった。For formal style, 昨日彼女は学校に来ませんでした。昨日彼女は学校に来ませんでした。How do you say, Mr. Tanaka came to the meeting? Meeting is 会議。In plain form, 田中さんは会議に来た。田中さんは会議に来た。For formal style, 田中さんは会議に来ました。田中さんは会議に来ました。Our next irregular verb is ある, which means to exist, and it is used to indicate the existence of inanimate things and plants. You've already encountered this verb well in Lesson 21 on verbs of existence. ある is the plain non-past affirmative. It means there is or so-and-so exists. The negative is simply ない. It means there isn't or so-and-so doesn't exist. The past tense is simply なかった. There wasn't or so-and-so did not exist. The formal is あります. Negative is ありません. Past tense of あります is ありました. Past tense of ありません is ありませんでした. Drop the mas and you get あり, which is the conjunctive form. The plain past affirmative is あった, and the tense form is あって. This is how it looks like in Japanese. ある、ない、なかった、あります、ありません、ありました、ありませんでした、あり、あった、あって。ある and あります both mean there is or so-and-so exists. ない and ありません both mean there isn't or so-and-so does not exist. あった and ありました both mean there was or so-and-so existed. And なかった and ありませんでした both mean there wasn't or so-and-so did not exist. Let's practice making sentences. How do you say in Japanese, today there is no bus, or today a bus does not exist? In plain form, 今日はバスがない。今日はバスがない。In formal style, 今日はバスがありません。今日はバスがありません。As you learned in Lesson 21, the verb ある can also denote possession. How do you say in Japanese? I have a bicycle. Or, as for me, a bicycle exists. Bicycle is 自転車. In plain form, 私は自転車がある。私は自転車がある。And in formal style, 私は自転車があります。私は自転車があります。How do you say in Japanese? There was a concert at the Tokyo Dome. Or, at the Tokyo Dome, a concert existed. In plain form, 東京ドームでコンサートがあった。東京ドームでコンサートがあった。And in formal style, 東京ドームでコンサートがありました。東京ドームでコンサートがありました。The last irregular verb is だ, which is the verb to be, or is, are, or am. It is actually the first verb that many Japanese learners first encounter. The plain non-past affirmative is だ, which means is, are, or am. The negative is ではない, or the では contracts to じゃ, forming じゃない. It means isn't or am not. Past tense is dewa nakatta or janakatta, which means wasn't. The formal non-past affirmative is des. The negative is dewa arimasen or ja arimasen. Past tense of des is deshita. Past tense of dewa arimasen is dewa arimasen deshita. There is no conjunctive form. The plain past affirmative is datta, datta, and the te form is de. Looking at it one more time in Japanese, that is da, dewanai or janai, dewanakatta or janakatta, des, dewa arimasen or ja arimasen, deshita, dewa arimasen deshita or ja arimasen deshita. There is no conjunctive. Datta and de. Da and des both mean is, are, or am. Dewanai and dewa arimasen both mean isn't or am not. Datta and deshita both mean was or were. Dewa nakatta and dewa arimasen deshita both mean was not or were not. How do you say in Japanese, I am a student? Using plain style, watashi wa gakusei da. Watashi wa gakusei da. And using formal style, watashi wa gakusei desu. Watashi wa gakusei desu. How do you say, she is not a teacher? Plain style language, kanojo wa sensei dewanai. Kanojo wa sensei dewanai. Or kanojo wa sensei janai. And using formal style, kanojo wa sensei dewa arimasen. Kanojo wa sensei dewa arimasen. Or kanojo wa sensei ja arimasen. How do you say in Japanese, 100 years ago, Japan was a poor country. 100 years ago is 100年前. And poor country is binbou na kuni. In plain style language, 100年前に日本は貧乏な国だった。100年前に日本は貧乏な国だった。And using formal style, 100年前に日本は貧乏な国でした。100年前に日本は貧乏な国でした。To summarize, in this lesson, you learned how to conjugate the 5 most commonly used irregular verbs. These verbs are suru, to do, iku, to go, kuru, to come, aru, to exist for inanimate objects and plants, and da, the verb to be. They are irregular because they don't follow a consistent pattern when conjugated into the basic 10. We also practiced forming these conjugations through making simple sentences. Of course, there are other irregular verbs in the Japanese language, but these are rarely used, or only certain forms of these verbs are used, such as gozaimasu or kudasai. We will learn them when we study honorific language. So now, with your knowledge of all 3 verb categories, you have a very solid foundation in tackling more advanced verb conjugations, and you are well on your way to becoming fluent in the Japanese language. Omedetou gozaimasu. If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly on. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。